that's amazing. See, this stuff is, well, this is equally hard, but it's sort of, at least I can see it. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
when you have to order things in a particular way, it can be very difficult to know
It's
what.
it's it's just very logic oriented. You have to sort
Yeah.
of predict how things are going to work. I mean, you can then test them almost immediately, but
Oh, that's great.
you have to make it sort of a framework first.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's amazing to me because in animation, that's similar sort of process where, we'd be drawing a character frame by frame by frame, and you'd only be able to, like in the olden days, if you wanted to test it out, you just have a bunch of individual pieces of paper, and so you to test it
Yeah.
out, you have to take a camera and basically take pictures, and of course the cameras back then weren't good either, so you had to like use actual film, develop it, and then put it in a computer
Hmm.
somehow, and then like then you could see it move. And then only then would you see it if it was right or wrong, or if the spacing was bad, or if the character isn't believable. Now we can just test it immediately on the computer. So it's amazing how things are progressing. Um, I also just noticed right here on this window, it's a little bit off perspective. I think it might be something more like this, just a little nitpick there. But
I was actually just following the lines. That corner goes directly to that perspective line.
oh yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Oh no, the other one is.
Oh yeah, this over there. Yeah, I see what you mean. Cool. Yeah, and one thing I mentioned over here was that for the windows of this, you could consider having like a ledge. And then I thought, well, you could have like so that it was like a sort of a window pane. But then for this top piece, I mean, that might work for these ones down here, because if you don't
Yeah.
have a ledge, this is going to wear away.
Hmm.
And you could do that too. That's another option. If you just had like some of this window that was like cracking away, which might lend itself to sort of the desert sort of aesthetic of this.
Hmm.
So that could look really nice if you had something like that. But another option, at least for the top, would be to have actual ledges coming out. So the
Yeah.
windows are actually sort of extruded from the building. Um, you probably actually know that term from 3D modeling. Do you ever talk about extruding?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where you just grab a bunch of faces, press extrude, and you can pull it out. It's super easy actually in modeling. So if you
Hmm.
did ever want to model this, then it'd be pretty simple. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be a little bit more interesting maybe. And then it would be quite tricky though, because then what we have happening is there's going to be all these different perspective points. These are going to be going down this direction or however they're going, but then it's also
Yeah.
going to go out a little bit too. It's actually great. I'm using my main drawing tablet, not my laptop drawing tablet, so I can draw much more precisely this session than previous sessions. So yeah, it'll be something like this. Yeah, that might be nice. And then you could have like even a layer underneath this that's sort of holding it up. Maybe it's like that.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit weighted. And again, like I don't know engineering or architecture or anything. I'm just sort of intuitively thinking that like,
Yeah.
well, this is probably going to be pretty heavy, so it might need a little bit extra space to hold it up. But yeah, I just sort of
Yeah.
play around with the.
My main worry isn't architecture; is that it still keeps the sort of Adobe vibe.
What do you
You
mean?
know, like
Oh,
Adobe
Adobe.
Desert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you meant software.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that's actually a great transition. I'll talk about a couple more things here. Oh, I put a little flag in. I feel like this is the perfect kind of thing that might have like a little flag, or maybe a flag over here or attached
Yeah.
somewhere. Like you sort of have this going already with the potential fabric of this thing, which I
Hmm.
really like, by the way. It's almost like the captain's suite or something. Might want to put like some kind of ledge in there so that people don't fall off. But yeah. And the cool thing about having a flag is that then you could actually design the flag, and that could be another artwork that you do for this. Because the more you flesh out this environment, the like you can get a lot of mileage out of this one design for the sake of your portfolio. What else to knows? That's great, especially because I feel, I don't know if you intended for this, but seeing as this is like a tower, these little windows here actually feel like they're like where the archers would shoot out of or something? Is that sort of what you were feeling about those?
I don't know. That was all just design,
Okay.
just filling in blank space.
Yeah, well, it's perfect because, they would need a lot of vantage points that are going sort of in every which direction. And I feel like these very much serve that. Or like this reminds me of those old bunkers that would be in like World War One, or I don't know, whenever they in some of those wars where they had the muskets that they would shoot out of those tiny little pigeonholes. And then I just added a little bit of width here because this thing was a little flat before. So I just it was basically
Oh
like,
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
yeah, like going around like that. It felt like it was sort of made of paper. So I just gave it a little bit of
Yeah.
thickness. And yeah, so I'll do some work on your other one in a bit. But I just want to bring up some things that reminded me of what you're sort of going for. This is obviously, you're probably well aware of Prince of
Mm-hmm.
Persia. Yeah, so I just want to mention a couple things on each of these. See, I noticed that in your case here, you've sort of got, let's see, I'm going to take off all of my changes. Oh, let me copy this. Where it is, I'm not sure. Oh, there we go, it did work. I feel like just in terms of how we can design this so that it's the best way to do this. There we go, that's kind of nice. It's pretty easy to see it. Can you still see that clearly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of elements that could potentially be added. Not that they all need to be. Everything in this game is probably way more decorative than you're going for. You're going for much more simple designs. But it's worth sort of taking a look at some other things that are at least in the same maybe region of the sort of fantasy spectrum.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of stuff, and it's not even all that precise. It's just like, this artist is probably just like, oh well, I need to add some more visual interest on this, so I'll make some rivets and then have them go around, and then these spire things down here. I don't know the correct architecture terminology, but
Like
anyways, just like,
arches, columns.
yeah, just arches and all kinds of different shapes that you could add. So like you could have, for example, maybe up here there's these things to steal directly from this, which I don't necessarily recommend, but you could have something like this. Or maybe there's a ledge here. Maybe there's like, because the other thing that I noticed about some of this Prince of Persia artwork, especially, and other artwork that's of anything architectural, is that architecture, especially old architecture, which you're sort of going for being in a fantasy genre, it's very, very layered. There's tons of different layers, especially up here. See, notice how like there's like this piece here. I have no idea what it even does, but it's like it's just layered there, and then there's like a bit of depth there, and then these pieces are sunken in, and this piece probably protrudes a little bit, and then even the roof, they like layered up into a bunch of different pieces. It's just very, very layered. There's lots of different stuff, and also it's nice that they have some wear on them too. And then this sort of goes in. Often I find roofs, if there is any roof, like you've done sort of in this case over here, they sort of have the roof piece, and then underneath the roof piece is what's holding it up. So it's not, some people, what they'll do is they'll draw a roof like this, and then they'll go have that suction right to the house like that. But really, there's going to be supports that are sort of holding it up like that, which I think you've already. So for example, here, once we have this like little bit of width that goes around this piece, you might even have some things that are sort of holding it up. That's another way of adding a little bit more depth there. And then maybe each of these poles that are sort of holding this little platform up could, which is actually a great idea, I realized, because this platform, see, again, I think you've got some good intuition, Sterling, because this platform almost looks as though it could like sort of catch the arrows that are going to be shot at this, that could slide into the window here or something. It sort of keeps them below.
I wasn't even thinking about that source. It's just a house.
Yeah.
It's not a fort. Well, I mean, it might be a fort. I don't know.
If the house needs to defend itself, then it's ready to go too. But
Mhm.
yeah, and then each of these pieces might have a block of cement, for example, or whatever this is made of, mud, I guess, probably, that is attached to each of those poles. And then maybe those are caught together. Not that you need to make this super
Yeah.
complex, but just like it's nice to have some layering. So just like consider things like
Mhm.
that. And also here they have you know, some curtains and drapery flowing around, which is kind of nice. It really what this is for. When you start studying composition and this kind of stuff, a lot of artists will tell you that all curtains and trees and anything that it's not really about the actual curtain itself, or it's not about like having a tree that necessarily looks like a tree. All trees and curtains and anything that has a natural form is just really an excuse to add a compositional element. So you'll notice it's kind of convenient, that this curtain here sort of points our eye down towards the main character. If we sort of like follow that, it's kind of going right there. So really,
Mhm.
everything is just to build a more interesting composition. So they try and encourage artists to separate the idea of drawing these things just for the sake of themselves, if that makes sense. I'm not sure. And yeah, with these fences, that this is really complex. But for example, what you could do in this case, I wouldn't recommend obviously doing this. Like if you're gonna be, don't pen in that kind of detail. Like it's okay to have that detail, but all I would probably do is just, have you made any custom brushes before by any chance?
Uh, for different purposes. So not really
Easy,
for
quick way of getting around this. Sorry?
not really for drawing. Oh, you cut out there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no problem. Well, oh, shoot. I'll just get this out of here. Okay, so yeah, so if you did want to do any kind of like crosses or X's like this, like thatching basically, it's really pretty easy to do it really
Oh
quickly.
yeah, yeah. I know how to do that.
Okay, great. So then you just like, yeah, just duplicate this and then, you know, that kind of thing. Then you can turn this whole piece if you wanted to. And then suddenly we have a nice anywhere and then duplicate and whatever else. Yeah, I think you're pretty good at that stuff, so we won't go over that. Um, yeah, and again, just like more layering here with like this stuff, just like holding things together, just like more of that kind of stuff. Like you already have a good design here, so just like fill it in with more little bits and pieces that can give it some believability would be nice. And this is like, you're not at this stage yet, but adding some nice wear and tear, which is really just about, yes, yeah, this is a little too worn. This is decaying, but you know, it helps to add a believability and just realism to it. So yeah, yeah, this is a good piece overall. Yeah, and if you even want to like check out other artwork, for example, I made a point of showing you this section because you could even just take this and you know, like, oh, here it is. Wow, it's so small. Yeah, so I just noticed these because I noticed they are very similar to your window that you already have. And again, this has nothing to do with form or function, but notice how they have like this little piece that connects.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could just like have a bit of a border around these windows, and then maybe thicker bottoms. That's very common for some reason. Thicker bottoms, and then maybe there's like some kind of design. It doesn't have to be super complex, like even just a line that goes across, or maybe you have even some more decorative things have stuff like this. Yeah, it's up to you, but
Mhm.
that looks kind of strange. But yeah, just something that just form or function type dynamic. And we'll get into this later too, but there's obviously great like sense of texture applied to this area especially. So yeah, once we get there, it'll be nice to begin adding some of that. Let's see. Yeah, and also this is also for after. And the nice thing about this is you probably won't want to use the pen tool for any kind of natural surrounding stuff. But I thought this some of these pieces, for example, would be really nice in and around the Adobe house. So, oh boy, it's over here again. So yeah, you could even just take these and see what they might look like if you put like a rock. And by the way, in concept art, it's super common to take photos, other artists' work, whatever you need to, and then use it in a way that isn't really using the original work. It's just taking a compositional element and then drawing over it a little bit. So you can get this general rock shape and then change it a little bit and make it more of your own and put that in the foreground. See, these are much bigger rocks in the composition that I took them from, but you can just sort of use them just to build composition around the house. And yeah, what will it look like? Maybe the sand, for example, is even pooling against the surface, as often happens. There's a bit of like this kind of thing where there's like little, and sometimes there's piles of sand, especially if there's been a desert storm somewhere. Or if there's for example, if there's like a piece of the house that was sort of indented, maybe, for example, because it holds a lantern or some kind of candle or something, which would also be nice because then it adds a nice light here for when we eventually paint this piece. But then sand might actually pool into that piece, and
yeah,
being something that you put anywhere really. Like there could be little indents out, and you could put little lights or those gas stoves or something just to like add light, or maybe it won't be lit. I'm not sure. Depends what kind of home this is, I guess. And yet just how the sand sort of pools around doors, even things like that. Be doing that kind of thing. Or maybe it's not that sandy. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, again in the background here, look how, I don't know if you can see this that well, but this is just very nice details. Like it makes it feel very, well, that said, this would be like a kingdom of some kind. If you're just making a common house, then it actually will probably have much less detail, obviously. Yeah, again, like this is one of those cases where this artist just made this brush. They probably made, actually, I don't know if you've seen this technique, but what often happens is artists will do some kind of strange design like this. Just something like they're not even sure what it's going to end up like. And then things have a really interesting way of looking really nice when you sort of duplicate them and flip them. You know, that whole effect where you do this, flip it, which I have hotkeyed. And sometimes you can even like try things like where you're putting it inside of that or something like that, which actually looks a little better, I would say. Something like that maybe. And then you can, if you want to, you can make this a custom brush, which is where it gets a little bit easier. But really, if you want to use this, for example, and maybe you want to span it across that whole space there, have you used Translate Distort? Or Transform, sorry?
I've used all of them.
Okay, great. Yeah.
You can just Control T and then right click.
Yeah. Yeah, even faster. Yeah, so just that kind of stuff, that can be really nice, which is definitely what this artist would have done because this would take so long without that. And it's a really quick way to get like a nice effect, but I won't labor this too much. Yeah, just like the intricacy of these shapes is really, really well done. Like all those ledges and just getting a feel for like what this edge really is, because I think when we're just starting out, we have a tendency to just make like straight lines. But really there's usually all these different layers to things. So you could do some of that in your drawings. That'd be great, especially in this case where there's like archways or some kind of vertical columns on top of something. What this thing usually looks like is there's a ledge there, and then it goes around, and there's a ledge at the bottom. Just that kind of thing. I see this design everywhere.
Yeah.
And this looks like it might even be made in a similar material to the house that you're building, maybe.
Yeah, that's about the idea.
Maybe a
for
little
this
bit down
room.
there. See. Yeah. Yeah, and having some curtains would be nice too. I said it gives it a nice human element to design. So yeah, I would consider that in especially the desert home. For this one, how is this one going for you? Can you describe this one took you a little while, you mentioned?
Well, I just kept making mistakes that I noticed
Okay.
then later on, and
Yeah.
then had to redo most of it.
Okay.
For example, the roof there is when I noticed that and I just gave up and went on to the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot. I'm really thinking that it might be nice to make that horizon line high. And since you're not too far into this one, to fix that, as I was doing before, I'll make a group here on top of my fixes. Yeah, so we'll still keep your edge here, but I'll actually set up a grid first. Well, just for safety's sake, I'm going to make it extra high, just so that we're sure that we get the buildings in nicely. And I'm going to keep your general point. That's pretty close. And this one, oh, it's right there. Okay, so. All right, so this is the perspective. I'm actually going to lower this down a little bit, just because I know that there's going to be, all up here, there's going to be the roof space. So I'm just going to make it a bit more manageable. Whoa, I didn't know you could do that. Okay. Yeah, taking the same edge here. A little easier for you, I think. Let's see. So depends how far you want to go back. But I'm considering extending this a little bit. Well, let's just see. Be there. Actually, that's pretty good. Yeah, so then I'll go into the other layer. So it'll just be our perspective grid. And then you can really, with these lines, like the nice thing about this one, we're using the pen tool for this one too, I guess so, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to, you can just use the line tool just to get started at least, because you can obviously get rid of your rough layers after, but this will allow you to test a little bit easier. So you can just sort of see what, if it, again, like you said, you want to just maintain that look and feel of your original sketch. So, and also if you have cases like this where you're going to be duplicating this element on the other side, I might just copy this whole piece, then bring it over here and just like transform it differently. Make it a little bit lower, actually significantly lower. Yeah, see, you can sort of cheat it a little bit. It doesn't have to be exact, but it'll get you going at a faster. Oh shoot, this is the edge over here. There we go. Yeah, see, that way you don't have to redraw everything. If you want to sketch, that's fine too. I find sketching can be a little difficult on the Intuos tablets or the Bamboo ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where the Cintiqs really begin to start. Not all of it, but a lot of this you can just eyeball. Like again, I didn't really measure the perspective of that second of this spire here, but it feels pretty right. I think it feels pretty good. So there's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of it that's just eyeballing it and sort of keeping a close eye on things to make sure. For example, in the one that you had designed, I noticed that this middle piece felt a little smaller than it does up here in your sketch. So to
feels shorter but wider.
Yeah, exactly. Like it feels thicker, sort of. So how might we do that? Well, I noticed that
I think they were just too far away. The two buildings.
That's a bit much, I would say. Like when I looked at this one, you know, it's back a little bit, but not too much. So for example, if this one was here, if this line was here, I might let's just guesstimate to there. It is really bold. I'm gonna make that a bit more translucent. Yeah, something like that. That's off. Oh well. For now, let's see. So you could probably actually, it might be easier to work on the roof first to just decide where this top peak is going to be, because it goes sort of into the side of it. So maybe it goes like that, and then sort of comes down like that, and then goes across. And then we can get rid of this line. So that's going to be going into the, if we were to draw through it, which is very common, by the way. A lot of artists will draw through things so that they can see if this width feels right, because since this roof is obscuring it, you still want to be able to see that. That's very common, especially they really made us draw through everything so that we could, like even on this side, they would make us draw this piece so that we could ensure that this width was correct, which it looks pretty good. Yeah, something like that. But that's beyond what we really need here, unless it helps you. If it helps you, and it does, many artists will still do this. They'll draw through everything just so that they can figure out if things are actually meeting up in the way that they think they are.
Oh my God, there was already like.
So yeah, this building will come down, and oh, even that actually. Well, no, this is pretty good. It's just that I want to see some of the detail on here, so it might be worth it just for the sake of the design of this angle to actually bring this up a little bit. Maybe it's like right here. See, it's a constant sort of push and pull, because this way, when we have this going across, it's a bit of a tangent because it's meeting this roof. So I might just arc this in like that. See, did you see what I mean by that? Why I did that? Because this was just like meeting that line perfectly. We call those tangents in composition. That's just when two points are sort of converging in an awkward way. And then we just make one overlapping the other very clearly and dominantly, so that it's less, dominant. So then this one, it'll be right here. So this way, you still get to see a lot of this. Actually, it might even be lower, because see, I'm looking at this line, and then there's that one as well on top. So,
so the idea is the one on top is where the actual building is, and what you're looking at below is just sort of like a supporting arch.
Yeah, just the support, exactly. Yeah, so here, this is where it is actually quite valuable to know how long this middle piece is going to be. What you want to do is take these lines, draw them across, just to get the same width, and then sort of draw through the building up, and then that's exactly how wide it's going to be. And then we can get a nice even curve here. Yeah. Yeah, see, now we don't need that, but now we know that it's right. It's definitely going to work. And we also know the exact distance of how far this part is into space from the front of this facade. So that'll be great. We can get rid of all these construction lines, and now we have a nice even piece here. I'm actually just going to get rid of the, oh, so much easier to see. It's always such a battle with what you keep and what you hide. Yeah, see, now I can sort of just see. I think you were struggling with the construction of it, but once you have the construction, that's when you get to the fun stuff. Because then you can just add things in very freely. Like you could, actually in this case, it might be worth it to keep some of that, just because if you keep this, knowing the width of this, then you can know where the middle is, because where the middle is going to dictate where these windows are placed. So you could, a lot of artists, when they're quite established, they'll just put windows in, and they'll assume this one's a little bit obscured, and they're probably pretty right most of the time. But if you want to be really exact, then it seems like so far that's sort of what you're going for, which makes sense because you're just like, this is your first sort of crack at this. Just measure it exactly. So get this piece, and then just the middle of this. So again, we're gonna have more space from here to here. I'm gonna guess it's like right here, and this side will be smaller because it's going back in perspective. So it's gonna be a little bit closer, like something like that. Then from here, if you wanted to, you could do the X's. The X's just help establish where the middle is of this next piece. So we know that that's the middle of this, that's the middle of that, and then it's very easy to place a window. Oh shoot, that's a tangent. Yeah. When you need to cheat it, by the way, in order to avoid the tangent, just cheat it. Just like if you need to move something, even though I pushed this back a little bit, it would probably be more along right there. For the sake of this design, just yeah, that's what we call cheating.
Yeah.
Cheating it, if you the actual aesthetic of it. It's funny, there's so much cheating in art. It's great. Yeah, and then you can just get rid of all this stuff. It's amazing the amount of drawing that goes into this. Like it really, you really reminded me when you sent me some of your emails about how this stuff really does take a while. Like it just does. It just takes a long time. And artists get used to it, and then they can do it much faster. But like it still takes me a long time to work through this stuff. So I can definitely understand. For this piece, I think this is a pretty tricky piece too, because this is sort of extruding out. Same with this one down here. However, luckily you can use probably the same facade for that. So it's a matter of deciding how much that's coming out. I really would like to see this piece here, so I don't want to have it coming out too much probably, because it's sort of getting pretty tight to that. So maybe I'm just going to draw the front of it and then push it back. I think it's better. It's actually easier to work backwards here. So the roof is pretty much in line with this one, so I can make that like that. Then maybe.
I can be downtown. Is that better? Because you're just
Also keeping in mind that there's going to be this angle is going to be longer on this side, so I'm probably going to change that up a little bit. And it doesn't have to be the exact same angle of the roof. It can be if you want it to be. You sort of indicated that it is sort of a similar angle. But if you ever need to change that, this is the time to do it, because this is just a workbook drawing. So it's not necessarily going to be the final painting, but it could be if you want to continue on with this one. So yeah, once we get this, it'll be much easier to place the other one too.
I couldn't stop thinking of that.
Yeah, take this piece and duplicate it to the other part first before I make it go back, because the perspective is going to be different, obviously, than it will be on the other side. So just copy, paste. And again, this is very rough. I'm not really too worried about my line quality or any of that right now. So obviously on this side, what's basically going to be happening is it's going to be squished significantly, and also overall more just smaller in general. And then I'll maybe even shorter. See, I think this would be nice if it was actually extruding out from the building a little bit. See, going beyond the bounds, because it is pretty close to that edge after all. So yeah, just doing something like that. And then so we just go back here. You know, what you did actually in some parts, I noticed with the ellipses at least, was I think you just copied, like, where is it here? Yeah, like this edge. It's so exact. I just am curious how, oh, where is it? Here it is. Yeah, I thought almost you might have done where you take the edge and you copy it, paste it, and then you move that edge out. It maybe isn't the easiest way. Some people, I really like doing this.
I think I ended up doing that for the very leftmost window on the desert house, but the rest of them I just eyeballed it.
Nice. That's good. There we go. Yeah, it can be tricky. The only thing, I wish there was a way to paste into the same layer. That'd be a tool that I would like from Adobe, but yeah, whenever you paste, it creates a new layer. There's worse problems though. This one I might have a bit thinner, but if you want to, you could have the same width, which is probably going to be. Yeah, the nice thing about this, I'm just using my arrow keys now to move.
Yeah.
Of this piece, obviously keeping in mind that this line that connects the two has to be in perspective. So I'm trying to also get that right at the same time. It feels like that might work. I love connecting it. It's so satisfying because it just, oh, that's wrong. Well, it would be more like this. Yeah, I was just looking at how far back this piece is going, and it seems way more compressed than this one. And this one looks like it might actually be more straight. So yeah, just sort of fine tuning it until it looks right. But it's getting there. Like it's pretty going okay now. I also noticed that you've got some, I love the rock work underneath. If we need to extend this down, which I think is going to be the case, then that's obviously fine. I'm just going to guess about right here for that. And then I really like using the line tool. It's just, I find it very easy to just sort of, even if you're drawing sort of curves, which I feel like there might be, and you could sketch this out too, but you can also just make lots of lines. Lines are a little bit easier on the bamboo, I find. But yeah, you could sketch out a bit of a rock, and I like how you've sort of tapered it out. That's really nice. We'll definitely keep that design intact. Oh, shoot. See, my layers are all jumbled up now. Yeah. Yeah, so we're getting a lot more established. It feels a little bit taller on this side. I might actually make this a bit taller on this side for whatever reason, not lining up properly. And but yeah, it's starting to feel like you're building a bit more. I'll send you this file so that if you want to, you can keep working off of it. I've got enough of a base to sort of keep you going. Ooh, I just noticed this chimney on the side here. That's going to be really interesting. I love that. See, that's something that's very unique, whether you intended it to be or not. It's sort of, I haven't seen too many chimneys that are going out of the side, so maybe there's like some kind of furnace over here or something. So there could be some kind of piece that's coming out of the building like this. Oh shoot, this reminds me, I forgot to mention in the desert one. One note that I made here is that the top of this house, it feels very round the way you've done it, but in this original where it's like there's a bit of a point here, so I was thinking like,
yeah, that was an accident.
Oh, okay.
But I sort of liked it anyways, so
yeah, even if it is like,
that.
it doesn't have to be, I mean, I made it very straight like that, but I mean, even if you have it as like sort of a gentle
curve, it'd be really slight, yeah,
and then a sharper curve there, that's nice. Like you could do something like that. Then all I would recommend doing is just measuring across here. So that's what I did here with this line. It's tough from this angle to demonstrate this, but I just had like, okay, well, that's your point maybe, so just be aware that, you know, there's going to be a bit of a change of angle. So all that it really meant from this angle is that this line was more straight than curved, because it's sort of going more inwards. But otherwise, like, you probably see it a lot easier from different angles. So I'm going to delete these recent things I added. Yeah, and you've even got a bit of a tube here, so there might be some big piece coming out here that goes down and then maybe into the building like that, and then some kind of ellipse on this piece, and then that might be where it comes out. You just have to keep in mind that this is the point at which it hits the building, so there's going to be a bit of space there, which is consistent with this, because there's a bit of distance. So now we've got like, yeah, probably that amount of distance coming out of it. That's actually great, because then it's not hitting the roof, it's going around it probably. Yeah, that's nice. I like that. It's a unique sort of attribute on your design. Let's see what else. Yeah, you've got lots of nice pieces here. I even like how you have these kind of designs coming down here. Whether it might be nice to decide what they are, if they're like sort of carved into the wood, or
yeah, it was too small to sort of figure that out earlier.
Yeah, of course. That's fine. That's exactly what this process is for, is to like start to get a feel for that. You might even have a bit of a design here. You know, something, a lot of like old houses might have something like this. And then of course, if you wanted to, you could always do the old copy, paste, and flip, and then just push it in a little bit. Fantastic. There's just such great shortcuts in it to be able to duplicate nice designs like that. Because usually that kind of thing is just so dreadful. And getting a sense of symmetry with decorative work is so painful. So it's nice to be able to make it much simpler for you. This window's interesting here too. So I'm not worrying too much about perspective. I'm just sort of, I am aware of it, but I don't necessarily need to measure everything. I guess maybe I should have clarified that the design doesn't have to be extremely tight. That'll be a process later. Like once you have these two buildings fairly worked out, then we'll actually start worrying about that line. And I'll tell you things like how we're gonna have like the underneath of things to be darker. So it'll be like, and we're gonna, it's an interesting thing in line work. Look for this when you're looking at the line work of other artists, but they actually often won't complete lines. They'll leave some of the lines out because it actually adds visual interest to do. It's sort of a technique called the persistence of vision. I might have talked about it in a previous lesson. I'm not sure, but yeah, it just helps to make it look really interesting. And the nice thing is, if you have everything very exact, like you've been working with so far using the pen tool and such, doing the freehand line work on top should be pretty easy actually, because all of your heavy lifting will be done. Because that's the hardest step, is just getting all the lines to be in the right place. Maybe there'll be some shingles that are a little bit off, poking out a little bit, and even the way that you draw detail. Often artists will have like sort of they'll show some of these shingles, but then they'll fade. And then they'll continue drawing them somewhere else. And there's all kinds of nice little techniques like that at a lot of depth. Because it's amazing how you really don't need to show everything. You just need to sort of indicate what kind of texture is on this. Like that kind of thing. Suddenly, like it's like, oh, that's a shingled roof, without having to draw every single shingle. And there's going to be parts that are tapered out. Maybe there's like a wood column here that goes across, actually extends out from the actual surface of the building. Maybe there's like a big chunk taken out of the side. It's cracked. You know, just all these. I love this stuff. I don't know about you, but this is my favorite part of the process, is when you get to make it look really nice and just fine tune all the hard work that you've already done. But yeah, we'll get to that when the time comes. I'll leave this layer here for now, even if you want it. But it's much easier with the Cintiq because I'm drawing directly on the screen right now. But I mean, it is quite doable with the Bamboo. Or an alternative, which you might prefer, is to when you have your rough drawing done, see how I've actually changed the opacity one. Or bring it really high and just get paper that's very translucent and put it in, actually print this page out. Ideally pretty big, and that way you can get some nice paper on top, hopefully that you can see through pretty well. Otherwise you can use some kind of light, like a light table, to see through it, and then you can just really nicely draw the lines. This is like we've talked about in the emails. I mean, this stuff does take a long time, but I mean, it's really gonna look good when it's done, especially having this original little sketch over here to remind you of like how this began. Once it starts to come alive, it'll start to be rewarding once you get to see what the final product's gonna look like. That's for sure. Sweet. I mean, I just continue on what you're doing, and take your time and don't completely burn out from this. It should still be pretty fun for you, even if it is frustrating. But yeah, I think it's going to look really good when it's done. So do you have any questions?
No, I guess not.
Yeah, you sure?
Yep, I think so.
All right, cool. So I'll send you these files that I've been working on. And otherwise, yeah, just send me a midweek check-in whenever you can, and I'll get to that too. I'll start drawing some of these things and just give you more ideas. And again, if you don't have this much time to do stuff this week, it's totally fine. Just like let me know where you're at and what you think you can do for next week, and then we can just work that way. But yeah, just continue on. I mean, we have quite a few sessions, so like if we take a lot of sessions to do this one, then don't worry. Like that's just what it's going to be.
All right.
All right. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. I'll see you next